Ken. Just like you, I'm a modern astronomer. Everything I do on the computer. So today I wanted to show you how I use weighted batch balance in PixInsight. So without messing around anymore, so to open it, so first I guess I should tell you what it does. It's going to take all your images, stack them together. It's going to make it perfect integration. I mean, I have yet to see this thing screw up. So first, you're always going to click on script and batch processing, and then down the bottom, weighted batch balance. All right, so let's start with the tabs. I have an ASI 2600. I do not use bias at all. If you do, you're just going to click on bias down here, and you're going to add from where you have it. So I use a dark library. If you click on darks, and then I have them where I keep them. So I keep all my stuff in C#. That way it's easy to back up. I have iDrive that backs everything up for me. But then I just go to darks, whichever telescope I'm using, and then I created the dark library for pretty much all the times that I work with. So 60 seconds, 120, 180, 240 seconds, and 300 seconds. I rarely go anything different than that. I've learned that they seem to work for me. So then you put that in. Now you put that in by the lights that you're taking. So if you take 5-minute subs on your lights, you're going to use a 5-minute dark, plain and simple. Flats, same thing, except for the flats are not time-based. Flats, if you want to clear out the old one, you clear it. If you want to add a new one, you go to flats. Same thing, I would go to my C#, go to my flats folder, pick out my camera that I'm doing the flats with, pick out the ones that I did with the telescope I'm working with. And when I make flats, I tend to make them by whatever size I'm working with. Generally, my camera is full open, but every once in a while I resize it and make things smaller just so I can zoom in a little bit better. So today we're going to click on that one. And then the next tab would be your lights. You're going to pick out the lights that you have. If you have something here, you just press clear. Remember, now my darks were 5-minute long, so I want to choose 5-minute long lights. So we're going to go to lights. I think what I will do is pick out the Whirlpool Galaxy. And I'm just going to pick on one of these just to show you. So SharpCap, when it saves it, I do live stacking. I do live stacking only because I can see what the stack's going to look like. You don't really need to, but I do it just so I can see. Then I never use them. I only use my raw frames. So we'll just pick on those 5 raw frames. I hit the Control A, and then they would be there. Now, 5's obviously not enough, so you would add in all the ones that you want to have. So I would hit lights again, go back to another folder, and hit all those lights. And we can add in, so what are we up to, 17 frames? We'll add in another round. And just for fun, we'll add in some more. All right, so then there's our lights. So right now I have, 41 5-minute long images in it. For showing you how to use weighted batch balance, that's pretty much all I need. So see up here, calibration, exposure, tolerance. So if I had multiple times, so this is, like I said, 300 seconds. We'll say I took some at 300 seconds, some at 400, or some at 240 seconds, and some at maybe even 180 seconds. By changing that number, the default is 1 second. By changing that number to something that all of them fit into, in my case I had a 275, so that would have caught a 30-second image. It would have caught a 1 minute. I would have caught a 2 minute, blah, blah, blah. And all my darks and all my flats would have worked. Actually, all my darks would have worked because I had chosen that, okay? You really don't need to change any of the defaults that are in here. That's the only one that I ever change. However, you can play around with them. Feel free. Another thing that I do is I do not preserve white balance, but I always save in groups on exit and a smart naming override, okay? I always leave that on auto. Now down here, see the output directory? I use ctemp. Ctemp allows you to not have a million files fill up your hard drive every time you put an image together. Because what happens, let's go to ctemp, drag you in. So what happens is SharpCap, when you use weighted batch balance, is going to make a calibrated folder, a debayered folder, a log folder, a registered, and a master. And all of them are going to have a lot of stuff in them. And all you need is the master. So this is the last one I made. So what I do is do everything in ctemp. And then I always come make sure I clean it out. I press shift delete. And that's how you always permanently delete, because I don't need them once I have created them. So that's why I use ctemp. I have a 1 terabyte hard drive in this. And how much space do I have? I have, 1 terabyte. So I have 432 gigabyte of free space. And I have all the pictures that I've taken probably in the last 3 months, in there. So you get to keep your raw images. And then, like I said, I back up. I use something called iDrive. All I do is back up my SharpCap folder. And then I have all my raws. And if I take raw images, we'll say of M51 today, and I want to integrate them with the M51 images I took 6 months ago, I can go to my iDrive, pull them in, and they're here. So it's very handy backing up to the cloud. Then I just download them, like I said, and then you have images from both. So now that's pointed to ctemp, and ctemp's done. And run will tell me if there's anything wrong. It's going to tell you here. Okay, so it's always going to give you this warning about file paths longer than 256. Another reason I use C#, because Windows tends to want to put stuff into C, users, documents, and then folder structure from there. Well, you could have a file name that's over 256 characters long when you do stuff like that. I'm making sure I'm never over 256 characters. So it's telling me that I'm going to have 3.99 gigabyte of lights that'll be calibrated. I'm going to have almost 12 gigabytes of debayered. Same with registration. And my master file, the only one I care about, is going to be 298. So from here you hit continue and let her get started. So right now it's doing the calibration. Then it'll do the linear defect correction, which is already done. Debayer will take a little bit. Measurements, sometimes rare. It all depends on how blurry your image is. When you are in this area and when you're down on integration, if your image is blurry at all, it's not going to be able to find the stars, because they're going to be blurry. So it's not going to be able to plate solve for you. The plate solving will help later, especially if you plan on using spectrophotometric color calibration, which is another video that I have showing you how to use that, but you must plate solve before you use it. All right, so I'm going to let this run. We'll show you what it looks like when it's done. All right, it's done. As you see, we started off with our 41 images. They all passed bad frame, but when it got to register, 4 of them failed. Could have been cloud. I didn't use blink. A lot of times I use blink, and I'll look for ones that were cloudy or for some reason not good. So we ended up with 37 at that point. And then when we went to local normalization, 3 of those failed, and that would have been not enough, probably clouds again. So we ended up with 34 to make our image. So after it's done, you hit done. You don't need to save this, feel free. I just hit done. Then it'll always pop up again. Again, it'll be at C temp. And I just always leave it there. All my images there. So then the other thing, and this is where C temp actually comes in handy, it always opens the C temp. And we look at this image. There it is. So put it together. Now we can go ahead and do our work with it. Which my next step, by the way, would be to do my image solver, then spectro, photometric calibration. Then I would remove the background, blur exterminator, noise exterminator. Sometimes I'll do gradient correction, most of the time I should say. Then I'll go to background neutralization. After that, then I stretch it. And then after I stretch it, a lot of times I'll go back to blur exterminator and play around with it and get cleaned up as much as I can before I separate the stars. Using Star Terminator, and once I separate the stars, then I can make this thing pop. So then, after I go through all that, there's my final image. I think it's looking pretty good. All right, and there's our final image. Hopefully you got something out of this. Thanks for watching. Definitely batch processing is better than anything I've ever used for taking all my raw images and putting it together. As you can see, it did a heck of a job. And this is just it. At this point, it's just like I said, go ahead and get the colors right and stretch it out and go from there.